Welcome to Monday Night in Prophecy, a program that has been going on for 18 years in a row. And I'm so excited that I'm again with you to study the Word of God as it relates to prophecy. And there's so much going on all the time. Oh, by the way, if you like to come and see me in person live, it is the first Monday of every month at Brookstone Church, Beaverville. And there is no charge. We spend a lot of time in discussion and questions and answer. And so we have that extra time there that we don't have on the video. So certainly welcome to come. As we start, I want to read to you a scripture from the book of Luke. And Luke is telling us the story of Emmanuel's disciples that came from Emmaus. And this is what it says. Jesus said to them, O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Jesus is telling them, you are foolish that you did not believe the prophecies of the Old Testament. You had some 300 prophecies, and you don't believe them as it talks about the death and resurrection in those prophecies. And so they're walking towards Emmaus, and Jesus is right there with them. You know the story. And Jesus has to scold them. And that's about the first coming of Christ. So why are we as Christians and so many different congregations and denominations that say, we don't take that literal. We just take that symbolically. No. The Bible tells us that we have some 400 prophecies of the second coming of Christ. And it's foolish, just like those Emmaus disciples were foolish, not to believe the prophecies that God has given us in Scripture. Now, he tells us not to set a date, but he does tell us that we should know the time period. That's the time period that he will come in, and we are living in that time period. And that gets me really, really excited, and that's why I keep going with this series. The series always has two parts. The first part deals with what the Bible teaches about prophecy. What can we find in Scripture? Some principles, and I'll do that again today. And then part two takes it day by day, and we go through the whole month to see what is happening in the world as it compares to what Scripture has to tell us. So with that, I'm going to the first slide where it says, what in the world is going on? The pace at which things are changing around the globe right now is absolutely breathtaking. But most people assume that life will just continue to carry on as it normally does. Unfortunately, that truth is the very real planetary emergency is developing right in front of our eyes. Now, I'm saying unfortunately for the world. For us as Christians, it means the Lord is coming even sooner. And so what I like to do in my teaching part is to take the foreshadows of the writers of the apocalypse. What do we see today that is going to be full blast as soon as we are raptured and we're gone and Antichrist appears on the scene? So, first of all, we see the rider of the white horse. That's Revelation 6:2, where it says, I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. That's what he's coming for, to conquer the world. And he has a bow. You know, those fiery darts that the Bible talks about. That is Antichrist. What do we know? What do we see in the world? Well, the World Economic Forum says this, quote, world needs a leader. Europe should step up. The call for global digital currency and the call for a global military force. That's what we're seeing in the world. And that is coming. Know in Scripture that it says that Antichrist will come out of the greater European area, the revived Roman Empire. Let's go on to number 2, the rider of the red horse, coming from Revelation 6, verse 3. Quote, "And another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. Him was given a large sword." With other words, wars and rumors of wars. And that's what you see on this slide here. There are more than 40 active conflicts around the world at the moment. Those are wars. Those are places where tens of thousands of people are dying. We don't even hear about it. We don't even know about it. So many of those are happening in Africa because they try to take over the government. And that's happening right now. It's going to be much worse after Antichrist comes to. Here's a picture of soldiers in Ukraine as they travel to the war zone. And here's a couple of kids and boys saluting them with a gun strapped to his back, and the girl holding his hand as he have this little rabbit stuffed animal in her left arm. And I just thought, how many people are dying right now, just in this one area, tens of thousands, on both sides. But it's going to get much worse. Then we see next the emerging global food shortage. And that's the black horse. A very alarming global food shortage has already begun, and it is only going to get worse in the months and years ahead. Between the triple price of fertilizer and the breadbasket of the Ukraine and of Russia falling out, the world will experience an extreme shortage of grains, especially wheat and barley. Listen to Revelation 6, verse 5 and 6. "Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages." See where inflation and scarcity of those grains are going to bring the world down. Thirdly, plagues and pestilences as revealed in the pale horse from Revelation 6, verse 8. Yes, they were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague. And again, we see that foreshadow of that in what we have in the coronavirus cases, where we see almost 500 million coronaviruses all over the world, where we see over 6 million deaths and just a small amount of recovered. That's what's going on. And again, it is only a token of what will happen in the 7 years of tribulation. And with that, we come to part 2. What is happening in the end time? What are the birth pains that we are seeing as they get stronger and faster all the time? That's from Matthew 24, verse 8. So we start with Friday, April 1st, 2022. Russia drafts nearly 135,000 soldiers. Says they won't go to the hotspots. Russia will bolster its army with 134,500 newly drafted soldiers. Those 135,000 soldiers are new because so many of the other ones have already died, so they needed all those new ones. Keep on fighting, keep on killing. Jesus says there shall be wars and rumors of war. Saturday, the 2nd of April, 2020. New York City, anti-Semitism surges by 409%. Anti-Semitic hate crimes in New York have recently increased by 409%, representing more than half of all hate crimes citywide. Many of these incidents targeted Orthodox people dressed in distinctive clothes, and you know how they come in their black outfits with their hat and their beard, easily recognized. Who would have known that anti-Semitism comes back worldwide as strong as it does? Sunday, the 3rd of April, Biden's anti-Israel ambassador wants Jews out of East Jerusalem. Biden's ambassador to Israel recently told participants pro-BDS groups webinar that the real problem with the Palestinian Authority funding terrorism is that it gives the haters, that's the Jews, an excuse not to support the PA, that's the Palestinian Authority, based on the argument that it is paying for people who killed Jews. And that is true, they are getting paid. Those who kill Jews get paid for the rest of their life. If they themselves get either captured or killed, then the family gets paid for the rest of. So those haters, the Jews, don't like that. Well, under the 4th, Israeli military found the deepest tunnel built by Palestinians to kidnap Israelis. I want you to watch this clip. Look at that. This comes from Tuesday, the 5th of April. Mount Ebal was a place of discovery of so-called curse tablets. Those curse tablets are tiny. They're only 3/4 by 3/4. And they're folded together, so if you open up, it doubles the size. And in it, it says, cursed, 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 cursed. 4 times. By the God Yahweh. You will die cursed. Cursed you will surely die. Cursed by Yahweh. Cursed, cursed, cursed. That's on the inside of that tablet in tiny, tiny writings. Now what does that mean and what is it all about? Let me go to a video and you will hear some of the people that are involved in that project. My grandson Mark came across this article and let me know, and I did some research and I was amazed. This changes the timeline of the Israeli history. So let's listen to what they have to say.
On that tablet.
All right, this is Scott during the press conference today in Houston.
I immediately recognized what we had. We call this a defixio, or a cursed tablet, because many of these are known. We know what they are. Frankie recognized it, I recognized it, and Abigail Levitt, who was the assistant director there with me, we all knew that we had a cursed tablet from the site of the curse mentioned in the Bible, so this was terribly exciting. We could see there were glyptic markings on the outside, but of course we didn't know if we would be able to recover those markings. My first thought was that one can't scan through lead. When they give you x-rays, you go to the doctor, they always put this lead on you, and I'm thinking, how are we ever going to be able to scan through this? But we ultimately were able to find a lab in Prague that had expertise. Thousands of scans were done on the tablet in 2 different settings, so that then with extensive post-processing of those images, we were finally able to begin to see letters emerge. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 10. It doesn't get any bigger than this. We talk about verisimilitude, or a consistency between what we read in a text and what we find in the material culture, that correlation, it doesn't get any better than this. This is what you, if the text were true, this is what you would anticipate finding, and indeed it is what we found.
So let me give you some more background. Those tablets were found on Mount Ebal, which the Bible we find in the book of Joshua is a cursed mountain. And then on the opposite side, as you see on this picture, is Mount Gerizim, which is the blessed mountain. In the middle, you see Shechem. Now, on the picture to the right bottom, you see Joshua's altar that was found on Mount Ebal. Now, this story happened just after the city of Ai was taken and destroyed. And you remember that one of the soldiers had gold and other stuff buried in his tent, even though God told him not to take anything out of Jericho. You remember the story. And so this is why God gives the Israelites this picture that will forever be in their mind. There is Mount Ebal, and Mount Ebal stands for cursed. You are cursed if you disobey God. And then there's Mount Gerizim. You are blessed. And I suspect there's also an altar on Mount Gerizim, and also those little tablets that will say, blessed, blessed, blessed is the Lord, is the man who is by the Lord, who is blessed by the Lord, who has obeyed him. So God gives them this picture of those two mountains. And so we found the cursed tablet on Mount Ebal, right next to Joshua's altar, where you would expect it to be found. Now, what's so amazing is that, people said for a long time, in Moses' time, no one knew how to read and write. And yet here we find in Joshua's time, just after Moses died, that yes, indeed, there is a written language. And it is found and it is proof that back in those days, yes, very well, they knew how to read. Well, I'm going on to Wednesday, the 6th of April. It is the day when Lebanon declared the bankruptcy of the state of Lebanon and the Central Bank of Lebanon. Lebanon used to be called the Switzerland of the Middle East. The beauty of it. It was gorgeous. People went there for vacation. Then the war started between the Christians and the Muslims. And of course, most of those are nominal Christians. And they started to destroy not just the cities, but the whole country. Today, it is so bad that the country, which is actually run by Hezbollah, has declared bankruptcy. And that gives a huge boost to Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is translated the party of Allah. And so they are out to kill the Israelites. And the Israelis together with Iran, and they want to just together eliminate them. So Hezbollah is now pretty well in control. Why? Because they get their money from Iran, not from the state of Lebanon. The soldiers, the Lebanon soldiers get their money from Lebanon, from the Central Bank, but not the people, the Hezbollah soldiers, who are basically an extension of Iran. And so that's very bad news. And again, it shows us how close we are next minute. Going to Thursday, the 7th of April. Klaus Schwab, and many of you might recognize that name, called for world leaders to unite to address global issues such as climate change, trade, and economic disruption. Emphasized this one world government must form as soon as possible. So there is this push worldwide towards a one world government, and in the not too far future. I'm taking you to Friday the 8th of April. And again, we are at the Black Horse in this connection, where it says, new facts about the emerging global food shortage. Reuters reporting that prices at German retail chains will explode between 20 and 50%. In Spain, products like eggs, milk, and other dairy products are in short supply. In Greece, at least 4 national supermarket chains have started rationing food products like flour and sunflower oil. Fertilizer prices have gone up again by as much as 300%. You can see the writing on the wall. You can see the foreshadow of the black horse as that terrible time is approaching. The total national death toll from the bird flu currently looks like 22 million egg-laying chickens killed. China's agricultural minister has announced that the winter wheat harvest in China could be the worst in history. Not much export there. A truly nightmarish global food crisis really is upon us, and hundreds of millions of innocent people going deeply suffer as worldwide, especially in Africa, but it will be felt everywhere, including the United States of America. And this generation doesn't even know what it means to have those kind of short. But Saturday, the 9th of April, breaking news. Colorado Governor Jared Polis has just signed into law a bill legalizing abortions through all 9 months, up until the moment of birth. Bible tells us, thou shalt not kill. How do you think God feels about it? How about his wrath? It is coming. It is coming. Sunday the 10th of April. Coming digital currency expected within a year. It will be programmable money, dictating what you can spend it on, replacing cash. This is a global effort, and President Biden signed onto it in March. So we are in it. It is coming. Digital. It will change the way we do. Monday, the 11th of April. The next generation of robots. Interesting. In the 7 years of tribulation, Antichrist will use technology to impress the world. So let's go ahead and watch this.
The British company Engineered Arts brought its sensational robot AMEC to CES 2022. The robot can maintain a conversation, but according to journalist reviews, it's not more interesting than a conversation with any smart speaker. But AMEC's reactions to the words and situations are truly fascinating. The robot's facial expressions are incredibly realistic and not repulsive. The robot's body is made of metal and plastic, and his face is deliberately sexless and non-human and gray. There are 17 separate motors in his head controlling his movements and facial expressions, but his facial features are surprisingly alive and emotional. And this combination of artificial and realistic worlds, according to developers, is what best fits the collective vision of what humanoid robots will look like in the future. Amica is not the first humanoid robot released by Engineered Arts. Over the past 4 years, the company has created a line of realistic mesmer robots, each designed and built from 3D scans of real people, allowing the developers to convincingly mimic human bone structure, skin texture, and facial expressions. However, mesmer robots look much more sinister than AMEC with his transparent plastic skull. What do you think? Let us know down below.
Let's go to Tuesday, the 12th of April. Locked down Shanghai residents scream from apartments. They're locked in for 2 weeks. And, if you want to know what it will sound like in hell, just listen.
这个是正常人的叫，完了终于200人，所有人都在叫，要命了！就刚刚5分钟前头，叫完没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！ 要命了。再这样弄下去，我跟侬讲，真要出事体了，操，麻烦了。根治啥么呢？因为所有的人，伊都不晓得这个状态到底维持到啥个辰光。我总要把个标准，或者是讲有一个具体的说法，没。
Isn't it unbelievable? Screams, why are they locked in? Well, China has a zero tolerance for the COVID. Therefore, they feel like they want to starve out the city and not even give them enough food. There are 26 million Chinese in this city of Shanghai alone. And this happens all over the place, not just. Well, let's go on to Wednesday, the 13th of April. We're talking about inflation. It's the highest in 40 years. And it's not about to stop. It keeps on going up. And it will destroy the lower financial class. The people that are just making it now will not be. Very sad, and again, a foreshadow of the 7 years. We're going on to Thursday, the 14th of April. Pope Francis consecrates Ukraine, Russia, to Mary. This is what he said. Mother of God and our Mother, to your immaculate heart, we solemnly entrust and consecrate ourselves, the Church, and all humanity, especially Russia and Ukraine. So he is consecrating Russia and Ukraine to Mary, as they call her the Mother of God. We know that Mary was a special woman, but she was a woman. She was a woman of earthly Jesus, as she was earthly. She was not the mother of God. God does not have a mother. God is the creator of everything. See how deceived they are in their faith. Again, under Antichrist, this will blossom, will eventually ask to be worshipped as God himself. We're going to Friday, the 15th of April. Earth only has a 3-month supply of food. World wheat prices soared by 19.7% during March, while maize prices posted a 19.1 month-on-month increase, hitting a record high along with those of. Again, see what's happening. The price of nitrogen has gone from $200 to $1,000. The price in potassium has gone from $200 to $700, and the price of phosphorus has gone from $250 to $700, all needed to produce the production of fertilizer. So now it is so expensive to grow a crop that a lot of farmers around the world are pulling acres out of production. They are saying it's just not worthwhile to pay that much, thus increasing the problem of having not enough food in the future. Let's go to Sunday the 17th. That day was Resurrection Sunday. And something very strange happened that day. The Muslims celebrate Ramadan, the Jews celebrate Passover, and the Christians celebrate Resurrection on the same day. All three are usually on different dates. Very rarely do those three overlap like that. We're going to Monday the 18th of April. 3 factors which are about to make the coming food shortage even worse. First of all, 400 million people across 45 cities in China are under full or partial lockdown. The harbors of those cities are closed. Nothing is exported to the Western world. Secondly, the Union Pacific rail lines that mandated shipping reductions that would result in nitrogen fertilizer shipment delays. What that means is that in a crucial time when the farmers need the fertilizer to fertilize the field right at that moment, Union Pacific says, oh, I'm sorry, we just don't have the fertilizer because we have a reduction of our shipping. What a bad timing they chose to have that done. And then thirdly, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced yet another outbreak of bird flu. This one in 2 flocks in Idaho, making that the 27th state in which the virus has been found. So count on chicken meat to go skyrocketing. Tuesday, the 19th of April, because Israel voted against Russia, Putin expressed his opposition to Israel concerning the Gaza riots, the Temple Mount riots, and the Golan as a possession of Israel. How long will it be before the bear comes south? So there was this vote on the UN to vote Russia out of the humanitarian part. And Israel voted also against Russia. And Putin was beside himself. So he says, oh, by the way, you have no room to talk, with your Gaza riots and your Temple Mount riots, and the Golan is not even your possession. So we see on which side Russia is coming in. And so the question really is, how long will it last before he comes down in a war that we know as the Gog and Magog? Wednesday, the 20th of April, Palestinians block the Jewish walkways on the Temple Mount with artifacts of the second Jewish temple. And so up on the Temple Mount, if you ever were there, you know that there's all kinds of Temple Mount artifacts lying around that goes back to the second Jewish temple period. And so the Palestinians take them and block the road where usually the Jews walk and make their rounds when they go up. By the way, they have been forbidden to go up until the end of Ramadan, which is at the end of April. Then they will be allowed to go up and walk the Thursday, the 21st of April, Christians, Jews, and Muslims believe that the Messiah or the Mahdi will return on the Mount of Olives. Christians have built this cupola to mark the place where Jesus went up into heaven. It is what we call the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria. That's where that is standing. That's why we usually don't even go there as we visit Israel. But that's supposed to be the point where Jesus went up into heaven, and we know what the angel said to the disciples, this very Jesus will come back on the very same place. The same way he went up, he will come. So there is this memorial. And by the way, at the second coming, we will be coming with him. So that's the place where we too will land as we. Thursday, the 21st of April, IDF fighter jets blow up terror tunnel after rocket fire. Israel-Gaza conflict escalates following Palestinian rocket terror attacks. So there's still those tunnels that the Palestinians are building. The Israelis find out about it and destroy them. Saturday, 23rd, Prime Minister Bennett, CNN's Christiana Amanpour, he told her, you're voicing a lie. It's a very interesting discussion I want you to see. It's between those two, and Christina is representing the world, so to speak. You will pick that up as she speaks, and it'll be interesting to see how the Prime Minister Bennett answers that. So let's go ahead and watch it. It's a little more longer. It's about 7 minutes, but let's go ahead.
Clashes with Palestinians in Jerusalem have deepened a political crisis in Israel. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's fragile ruling coalition lost its one-seat majority earlier this month when a member of his own party defected. Now it faces a new mutiny. The Arab Ram Party suspended its membership in the coalition to protest the government's handling of the clashes in Jerusalem. And rockets have once again been fired between Gaza and Israel less than a year since the last crisis that left almost 300 people dead. The Israeli Prime Minister is trying to hold his government together, all while attempting to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. And Naftali Bennett joins me now for an exclusive interview from Tel Aviv. Welcome back to our program, Prime Minister. Welcome to this first interview with us and the international TV, I think, as Prime Minister. Not a great moment for you. Your government is hanging by a thread. Do you think you can remain Prime Minister?
Well, I think it's vital for Israel to keep the stability and the success of this government. Israel's experiencing the highest growth in the advanced economies, better activity pretty much on every vector. But I want to tell you that our government is a unique experiment. It's the most diverse government in the history of Israel, religious and secular together, right and left, Arabs and Jews. And it transcends Israel itself. It's an experiment in fighting polarization and having decent people that have different views working together. And I'm convinced that the members of this government and the Israeli public, for that matter, want it to succeed, which is why I think it will succeed.
Well, then, what are you going to do to ensure that it succeeds? Because, as I said, one member of your own party defected. That was earlier. And now the Ram party, the Islamist party, in fact, has suspended its cooperation, not ended, suspended. What are you going to do to, I don't know, change the situation that's caused them? And it is the reaction of the Israeli government to the clashes, Temple Mount and elsewhere.
Well, first and foremost, I can tell you that all of my security decisions regarding actions on Temple Mount or with Gaza are not political. I take the decisions on the merit, what's right for the security, what's right to do. I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change my defense-related decisions because of political considerations. I think and I expect all the members of the coalition to step up to the moment. We knew it was going to be hard. We knew that when you put secular and religious together, right and left, and Jews and Arabs together, there are going to be bumps in the road. But that's the challenge, and I think that there's a unique opportunity for the first time ever in Israel where there's a Arab leader, Mansour Abbas, who is divorcing the nationalistic elements from simply taking care of the Israeli Arabs. And I hope he steps up to the plate and his people.
Mm-hmm. You know, he might say the same about you and the government, hoping that you will step up to the plate as well. There are something like 14 people on each side now, from Israeli side and from the Palestinian side, who've been killed in these latest clashes. And you say your defense and security policies are devoid of politics. However, this is a picture that the world has gotten used to now. It's constant cycle of killing, bloodshed, all sides really, really in desperate, dire straits, collective punishment, and just numbers, huge numbers of dead regularly in Israel in 2022. So that's the fact. And there doesn't seem to be any attempt to negotiate an end to the actual conflict. I just wonder whether you're spending any energy and political capital with this diverse coalition to actually try to end this conflict.
Well, first of all, the way the facts were presented is not accurate. Israel is peaceful. And about a month ago, unfortunately, a new wave of terror was thrown upon the Israeli public. We lost 14 people in 4 different terror attacks in Beersheba, Hadera, Bnei Brak, in Tel Aviv center, where Arab Muslim terrorists, some of them affiliated with ISIS, just came with rifles and started shooting people on the street. This is unacceptable. So I object to the notion of both sides. No, when they don't attack us, we have no issues with them. But when they do attack us, I have to fight back and hit them at their terror bases. And that's what any leader would do, and that's what I'm doing. Now, regarding the broader picture, look, I'm not going to take experiments on the security of the Israelis. Last time in Gaza, we did it about 15 or 16 years ago. We handed Gaza over to the Palestinians. We pulled back to the 67 lines. We pulled out and expelled the Jews living in Gaza. And what we got in return is hell. Tens of thousands of rockets shot at us. I'm not in the business of playing experiments on the Israeli people. What I will do, and I am doing, is people-to-people peace, bottom up, getting more jobs for Palestinians, better paid jobs, improving the economy. That's what I believe in. And I have to say, the Palestinians are experiencing unprecedented prosperity.
The jobs issue that you've just said is jeopardized because there has been a blockade, against some towns leading into Israel. So Palestinians say that that doesn't help them with the jobs. But what I want to ask you is, when you say people to people, let's just take what's happening, on the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif. When the world sees, and when Palestinians see, and when your region sees Israeli soldiers inside that mosque, it creates a lot of tension, a lot of unease. Why do you allow Israeli soldiers to go into that mosque?
Yeah, well, Christian, there you go again, starting the story in the middle. But the actual fact is that last Friday, at about 5 a.m. in the morning, roughly 300 Palestinian rioters entered Temple Mount Mosque with explosives, with stones. They began desecrating their own mosque, burning, throwing stones, and preventing about 80,000 decent Muslims from going to pray. My responsibility as Prime Minister of Israel is to provide freedom of prayer to everyone in Jerusalem, including Muslims, which is why I had to send in policemen to remove the rioters, and it worked. Indeed, 80,000 Muslims went on later to pray peacefully.
Isn't it amazing how the world sees it? Riots on the Temple Mount. But when you find out what the truth is, it has to do with quite something totally different. It has to do with the rioters not even allowing their own people to come, the Muslims to come up on the Temple Mount worship. And so that was the real picture. And I'm glad the Prime Minister cleared that up. But every time the world sees Israel, she says, oh, rockets flying back and forth. No, wait a minute. When Gaza fires rockets, Israel responds. Not otherwise. When rioters in Tel Aviv start to shoot people, Israel responds. That side, the world doesn't see and believe. And so that's why this distorted hatred against Jews is all over the world. Well, let's go on to the next segment. Sunday the 24th, Russia warns of nuclear hypersonic deployment if Sweden and Finland joins the US-led military alliance of NATO. And Putin said that he will release a nuclear. They continue towards joining. Sweden and Finland are on their way, and they are not going to let Russia threaten them. But it just shows you the mindset of Putin. It's wicked. We're going on to Monday the 25th. PA, the Palestinian Authority, warns Israel against dividing the Temple Mount. Palestinian officials believe that Israel is planning to divide the Temple Mount in the same way that the cave of the patriarchs in Hebron is divided into both a mosque and a synagogue. You will find that the cave of the patriarchs indeed has a part for the Muslims to worship and a part for the Jews to worship, because both sides see that as a holy place. And so now the Palestinians are saying, oh, the same will happen on the Temple Mount. Well, that could be, but we don't know when, because we know in halfway through the tribulation, there will be again a temple on the Temple Mount. So as you see in the picture behind me, the Temple Mount with the Golden Dome and also the Al-Aqsa Mosque there is this little copula, and it's very interesting. No one really has a purpose for it. It's just sitting there, and it has a very interesting floor inside, because that floor inside is not laid out like everything else with regular stone, large pieces, but in the center it is actually rock. It's rock bottom, which is actually higher than the stone plates that are laid everywhere else. And so it also lines up with the golden gate, or the western gate, where Jesus will come through at the second coming. And so it is possible, and I am just saying that's my personal belief, and there's a group of people, of Christians, who believe that's actually going to be the site of the next temple, allowing the Muslims to have their golden dome and maybe having a wall in between separate. If you look at a picture of the entire mountain here, you can actually make out the western wall. It is on the right side, halfway up. You see the structure there. That is the Golden Gate. And if you go straight back from there, and I'll show you that on another picture, you can just barely make it out, and so I circled it. That's where that structure, that cupola is. We don't know for sure. Most people believe it'll be on the place where the Golden Dome is right now. And of course, we might not find out. All of that might happen in the first 3.5 years. We will be raptured. I'm going on to Tuesday, the 26th of April. While everyone is watching Ukraine and Russia continues to build up its forces in the Golan. So Russia, while this war is going on, builds up the force in the Golan. One of the greatest Russian war games is going on in the Mediterranean Sea, as well as ever-increasing Russian presence in Golan, right in front of the Israelis. Remember again, Ezekiel 38-39, what will happen. And so while we see every eye is on the Ukraine because of all the ferocities going on there, build-up of forces, right there on the Golan is happening by the Russians. Their airplanes, warplanes, their ships, they have their own harbor, their own airstrips. They are actually patrolling the border to guard to get to the Golan Heights. It's amazing what's happening. And so, again, we are getting closer and closer to that war. Finally, I'd like to show you something from the Dead Sea. The topic, the headline from Wednesday the 27th is Dead Sea prophecy coming to life before our eyes. Well, I find that actually a little humorous, and so maybe after all the tragic reports that I had to give you, maybe a little humorous segment is just fine. So let's go ahead and watch it, and then we'll briefly talk about it.
He is saving the Dead Sea, and he is doing it with his camera.
You may have heard already that the Dead Sea is dying. Many say that in about 25 years it could be gone. Dried up, no more floating fun, and no more of these gorgeous salt formations.
This is happening, well, because of us.
The water that should be flowing into the Dead Sea is being taken by humans. Plus, chemical and cosmetic companies continue to mine minerals from here, causing the destruction you see now on your screen.
But today I'm here to give you a little hope.
That maybe, just maybe, the Dead Sea could be saved.
Shalom, my name is Noam Badin, and I'm here to save the Dead Sea.
Noam is an Israeli photojournalist and founder of the Dead Sea Revival Project. He sails around the Dead Sea on a boat with his camera taking photos. He has taken over 25,000 of them. Through Noam's photos, we are able to see the story of these waters. It's beautiful.
However, Noam is also showing the world the very scary reality of the dying Dead Sea.
He is taking the responsibility of documenting the destruction. These salt formations you see now are amazing, right? well, they no longer exist. You can see here in just a few years what is happening. So, through photography, Noam hopes to rally support to save the Dead Sea. He even created a virtual museum of the Dead Sea. Here you can buy Dead Sea NFTs with cryptocurrency. All profits go to help raise awareness about the ecological crisis happening here at the lowest place on Earth. But now I must share with you something unbelievable that Noam discovered on one of his boat adventures.
Exactly 6 years ago, I went on my first boat excursion here in the Dead Sea. I was actually amazed to realize how there's actually small fish in the sinkholes of the Dead Sea.
Could this mean the Dead Sea is coming back to life?
Well, according to an ancient biblical prophecy, it was destined to happen. It says the Dead Sea will come back to life, and it will be filled with fish.
This phenomenon is happening here at the Dead Sea because on one hand, the Dead Sea is actually receding in the lowest in recorded history, but on the other hand, life is emerging outside of the Dead Sea. On the Dead Sea's shores, you have sinkholes with fresh water, you actually have vegetation, bird migration, and even fish. While this is great, the Dead Sea is really still dying. For us to save the Dead Sea, we have to be restoring the historical flow to the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, the Kinneret, and the most important thing is regional cooperation around saving the Dead Sea.
Noam captures all the beauty of the Dead Sea while it is still with us, in hopes that the world will give a voice to these waters.
Yes, even in the lowest point on earth, there is still hope.
This is how the Dead Sea is being saved.
This is Inside Israel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
All right, so this is how Noam thinks that the Dead Sea will be saved. Restoring the Jordan's flow is a problem because two nations depend on that flow and that water. It is not only Israel, but it's also the country of Jordan that pumps out tremendous amount of water. And those people need it to live. And the same is true for the Sea of Galilee. But there is another possibility. Yes, there are some underground springs. By the way, that's not news. They were discovered many, many years before Noam. And the little fishes, because it is water without the salt, because it's so low coming out of the spring. But not nearly enough to make the Dead Sea grow again. But here is a solution that could work. And you see it on this final slide here, where we have the Gulf of Aqaba down on the bottom, and on top, of course, you see the Dead Sea, and a little further up, even the Sea of Galilee. And there are plans that connect the port of Aqaba, the ocean, to the Dead Sea. That line, as you see it right here, can be easily constructed because it is downhill all the way. You're going from zero elevation at the Gulf of Aqaba all the way down to 1,412 feet minus. So there is a complete fall. Not only that, out of that fall, there could be so many power-creating dams, electricity, that by the time it arrives, it can actually be without salt. So there could be this huge stream that comes down from the Gulf of Aqaba down into the Dead Sea and arrive there without any salt in it. And that might be a solution. Here's the problem. Both Jordan at times and at times Israel say, we don't really think we want that. And so then they say, well, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. It would make a huge difference. It's about a $6 billion project, but it can be done. However, at this point, even starting on it, because one or the other country says, no, not yet, not now. Nothing is happening other than that the Dead Sea is shrinking, getting less. Well, maybe it'll have to wait till the 1,000-year reign. I don't know. But it is true that Ezekiel does talk about that the Dead Sea once again will have life in it, fish and fishermen. Well, that is all for today. we want to meet again next Monday night in prophecy will be Monday, June 6th. And it will be on YouTube as well as live up at the church that I've mentioned before, Brookstone in Beaverville. Thank you for watching. Lord bless and hope to see you there. Bye-bye.